Hey everybody, what is going on? I'm Jeff Noble, and this is another video short. All right, in this short, we're going to take a quick look at the for each loop. Similar to the for loop, but it doesn't use an iterator that you define yourself. Looking at the screen here, I've created a list of ints. This isn't something you've seen before on this course, but I wanted to show you this because some feedback that I got online thought that this might be an easier way to deal with the concept of arrays. And this is more of what we really use day to day in programming. I don't use arrays as much as I use a list because it's easier. But I wanted you to have that background of arrays because arrays are used in every programming language and you don't always have lists like this. Looking at line 10, I'm just creating a new variable that can hold my list. And I'm creating a new list that can hold integers. So whatever data type you put in here, that would be the data type that that list could hold. So if I put string in there, notice I get errors on all of these lines because 0 is not a string and you can't just convert from int to string like that. So I'm going to put that back to int and we're all happy again. The focus here is on the for each loop. So an easy way to think of a for each loop is I'm going to give you a list and one at a time you're going to take the items in that list and assign it to this variable. So if I just type console.writeLine and pass in num and run that, it will go through all of the values that I've put in that list and it'll print them out one at a time. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are the 7 items or 8 items in total, including 0, that I put in the list. Because we don't have an iterator in this list, one thing we can do is we can make our own counter. I can type var I equals 0 above the loop before we go in, and then each iteration of the loop, after I print out num, I can increment I. Kind of does what the for loop does for us when we define the iterator inside. If you aren't familiar with a for loop, check out the card above where we go into that. Console.writeLine, we can also print out I, but just to keep it straight, let's actually put this into an interpolated string where I can tell you the value of I is, and then we'll just put that in curly braces so it actually prints the variable I there. And so I will start at 0 like we told it to up here. The value of I is 0, the value of I is 1, so that if these weren't in order, I could have added 10. Let me just add ones around different places here. So I just picked some random numbers there. It'll still go through and print those out in order, but I will count as I told it to. It'll start at 0 and it'll just print the value of I and then increment I to 1 and then to 2 and then to 3. And once it gets done going through this list, this whole loop exits. So there's the 10, 11, 2, 31. Those are these numbers printing out one at a time. And then the value of I we're controlling ourselves with this plus plus. Now, what I can say is if I is greater than 4, which would be 5, right? If I is greater than 4, then break out of this loop. And so it starts going through this list. The for each loop is planning on going through each one, but the if statement keeps checking I every time, and we keep incrementing I. So once I is greater than 4, you can see we get to 4, and then it prints 5 and it exits. The reason it does that is because I becomes 4 here. After the 4th time through, I becomes 4 here. It then loops. It writes out the 4. It says it's 4. Is I greater than 4? No, it's equal to 4, so it doesn't break, and then I becomes 5. And this time it'll go through, it'll print the 5, it'll tell you it's 5, and if I is greater than 4, which it is, then it breaks. So that's why we see the 5. So if we didn't want to see those, then we could move this up above here so that we actually check if we're greater than 4. And that way, when it's 5, it'll break before it ever writes anything out, and it will then exit the program. So there's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it exits. So that's a little deeper dive, a quick look at for each. And I hope it makes a little more sense to you. And if you have any questions, let me know. If not, I'll see you online.